There's a moment when you realize that things that keep you safe living alone after 60 are not the things most people ever talk about. It's not your portfolio, it's not your will, it's not even whether you can still cook your own dinner. I'm 63 and I'm not living alone, but I've been thinking a lot about this lately. For myself, for my friends who are retired and living alone, and from what I watched my mother deal with over the last couple decades of her life. And here's what I've come to believe. If you want to stay independent after 60, there are certain things you simply cannot live alone without. Not conveniences, not nice to haves, actual necessities that can make the difference between staying in your home and one bad day completely changing everything. But before we get into it, welcome to The Unretired, where you're not done, but you're finally doing what you want. If you enjoy these kinds of practical, real-world perspectives on retirement, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It's how we kind of build the community here. And a quick disclaimer, we are going to talk about some financial things here. This video is for education and general information only. It's not financial advice. Now, let's get back into this. The more I think about retirement these days, the more I realize that this is not just a financial plan, it's an independence plan. If you're single, widowed, divorced, or simply likely to spend part of your retirement alone, this message really matters here. And even if you're married and not alone, it still matters because the odds are one person lives alone eventually in your marriage. Somebody passes away, somebody survives. Now, one of the problems with all of these retirement conversations is we spend a lot of time talking about retirement income, Social Security, taxes, Medicare, withdrawal rates, and all of that matters. But if your living situation breaks down because you didn't build the right systems, a lot of that planning gets overridden by crisis. I watched some of this play out with my mother over the last 20 years of her life. She lived to 93, and as it happens with so many people, the conversation was never just one conversation. It was a series of conversations. Is she okay? Is she still safe? What happens if she falls? Is she telling us everything? Does she need more help than she's admitting? And that experience, and seeing friends now living alone in retirement, has convinced me that aging alone is not automatically dangerous, but aging alone without systems can be dangerous. So let's talk about some of the things that you can't live without if you're going to live alone. The first thing you cannot live alone with after the age of 60 is a daily check-in system. I'm not talking about a dramatic panic plan, not some high-tech command center, something simple but consistent. A text by a certain time, a visible signal in the window, a neighbor check, a family member ping or a call. The key point is this: if something happens, somebody should know about it relatively quickly without you having to ask for help. A lot of independent people resist this because it feels like surveillance, but it doesn't have to be. It can be really lightweight, can be unobtrusive, respectful. Look, the point isn't to manage your life. The point is to shorten the window between, hey, something went wrong and somebody noticed. And when people get into real trouble when they live alone, it's often not because the event itself was catastrophic, it's because nobody knew. The second thing is an external brain. A written or digital system for, medications, bills, appointments, routines, and what got done or didn't get done. Because when you live alone, your memory is the only memory in the room, and that's fine until it isn't. People assume we were talking about cognitive decline, but sometimes it is, and oftentimes, though, it's not. It's really more about load, and it's about no one else being there to say, hey, you already took that, or no, that bill hasn't been paid yet, or that appointment is tomorrow, not today. A notebook, a whiteboard, a notes app, a printed checklist, whatever it is that works for you. The format matters less than just the simple existence of any kind of system. By the way, stuff like that's relevant whether you're not living alone, but it's certainly more applicable when you are alone. The third thing is a joy budget. Not emergency money, not healthcare money, not bill money. Money specifically for your life, for your pleasure, small indulgences, things that make the day feel human. And this is very easy to skip when you live alone because everything starts to feel like maintenance. But if all your money is allocated to fear and survival, you're going to stop living before you die, and that's no way to live. And this doesn't have to be a big budget. It might just be a coffee out, a cleaning service once a month, fresh flowers for yourself, better groceries, tickets to something local, the hobby supply. A dollar amount is not the point. The point is just really kind of like psychological. You need a category in your life that just says, hey, I'm still here and I still get to enjoy things and have fun. And that matters a lot more than most people realize. The fourth thing is a crisis folder. Hard copy, digital, or both. Medications, allergies, doctors, insurance, emergency contacts, power of attorney. What do you do if you're hospitalized? If you can't speak for yourself, your system needs to speak for you. I mean, this is one of those things that almost everybody agrees is smart, and then almost nobody actually does it and sets it up the right way. Until something happens, and then it becomes completely obvious. If the paramedics or family members are scrambling for information in the middle of the stress of a crisis, you already made a hard situation much harder than it had to be. And this is simple preparation with enormous upside when things go wrong. The fifth thing is some form of wearable help button or fast emergency access. And that can be a medical alert device, it can be an Apple Watch with fall detection, or even just a simple phone strategy that is the phone is always near you or on your body, not just across the room, because the phone across the room doesn't help if you're on the floor. This actually happened to my mother. She fell and fortunately was able to crawl to her phone that was literally just across the room. It still took her an hour and a half to be able to crawl that small distance because she was hurt so badly. So having a phone nearby is usually the simplest step here, but an alert button, particularly for the older folks, is even more important. Now, that story about my mother is actually a really good place to pause so I can ask you something. If you live alone now, or you expect that at some point you might, for example, if you outlive your spouse or your spouse outlives you, which of these things do you already have in place? And which one are you missing? Drop it in the comments. We read every one of them, and I guarantee your experience, I see this all the time in the comments, your experience is absolutely going to help somebody else think about the same issues. The sixth thing is a house that fits your current body. Not the body you had at 45, the body you have now. Safer bathroom, easier kitchen layout, better lighting, no ladders, fewer reaching and lifting situations, simplified stairs if necessary too. Your house should be designed around your current body, not the one that you grew up with and had in your former identity. And this is where a lot of people get really stubborn. They think changing the house means admitting decline. But the truth is actually the opposite. Small design changes preserve independence. They help you stay in the house longer. Simple things like the step stool, the grab bar, the brighter light, the chair in the shower, the reorganization of daily use items. These are not signs of weakness. These are the tools of autonomy. And again, I go back to my mother's example. She didn't do some of these things, and it made her life really difficult as she got past 90 and ultimately had a fall and ended up in the hospital. And so that's one reason that you should make sure your house is retrofitted for the current age. And by the way, it's never too early to stop thinking about that. I'm only 63 and I've already started designing my house in a way that is gonna age very well with me. The seventh thing is radical honesty about your health. Do you have any dizziness, fatigue, falls, confusion, weakness, not bouncing back? If you live alone, there may be nobody there to notice your decline before it becomes a crisis. So you have to be willing to notice it for yourself and let somebody else know too. And this one is really hard because pride and ego get involved. People tell themselves, it's nothing. They normalize things that should not be normalized. They wait too long. But when you're alone, delay is really expensive. If something feels off, if your recovery is slowing, if your balance is changing, or if you're more exhausted than usual, that information matters. Retirement does not reward denial. The eighth thing is one daily anchoring ritual. One simple thing that you do every day for yourself. Morning coffee outside, a short walk, a journal, prayer, meditation, some daily structural point. Living alone can absolutely blur time, especially when you're retired and not working. A ritual helps keep you oriented, grounded, and present. For me, it could be a walk and some sort of exercise, but it's gotta be done every day. Now, this may sound small and obvious, but psychologically, it's actually huge and massive. Days can start to float into each other, especially if you're retired and alone. A simple ritual just helps your nervous system too. The day started, I'm here, I'm participating. It creates continuity. It reduces drift. You don't need a complicated routine. You just need one reliable anchor every day. The ninth thing is something that connects you to meaning. Not just socializing, not just activities. Something that actually connects you to a deeper meaning beyond maintenance. And this could be volunteering, gardening, learning, mentoring, writing, spiritual practice, a creative craft. People don't do well living alone when life becomes only about errands, meds, maintenance, and worse, just watching TV all day long. This is one of the deeper retirement issues that people miss. And again, this isn't about just being alone. This is even if you're living with somebody. If your days are built entirely around staying afloat, your world is going to narrow fast. Meaning is what pushes back against that narrowing. And meaning creates kind of a forward pull that takes you into life, keeps you engaged with your life and not just surviving it. The 10th thing is a willingness to ask for help early. And this is one of the hardest things for many people, but it actually may be the most important. Asking for help before a crisis preserves independence. Waiting until a crisis often removes that independence. So fix the roof leak early. Get a ride before driving becomes unsafe. Ask for help carrying the heavy things. Deal with the vision issue, the hearing issue, the medication issue, the bathroom issue before it becomes an emergency. Asking early keeps you with dignity of choice, and waiting often puts you in the desperation of crisis. Unfortunately, I saw this with my own mother. She would not ask for help until it was too late, and then we really were left with very few options, and that's not the way you want to go. And that really is the emotional spine of this entire conversation. Living alone after 60 is not about proving you don't need anyone. It's really about building a life where one bad day doesn't just take everything away from you. And lastly, here's what I've come to really believe about this whole concept, especially after going through this with my mother. If you want to live alone well after 60, you absolutely can, but you cannot improvise it. You need systems, you need rituals, you need support, you need honesty, and you need a house that works for your current body. You need other relationships, and if you build these before you desperately need any of them, your odds of staying in your home and staying in control go up dramatically. And again, we really focused on living alone here, but many of these same topics and solutions actually support people who are in marriages and living relationships as well. So it's not just about living alone. All right, if this has resonated with you, please go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our future weekly videos. All right, let me close with this. Living alone after 60 is not about proving that you're self-sufficient. It's really about designing your life so that independence is sustainable until the very end of your life. And the people who do this the best, they aren't the ones who wait till they have no choice. They're the ones who build options while they still have them.